Good morning. I love the way everybody's come together from all over the world. And immediately we're sharing stuff with each other. That's fantastic. But let's share a big good morning with everybody. Good morning. Actually, that's very good. We're going to do one more time. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much. Welcome to OEB 2021. I'm Don Taylor. I'm your host. I'm the guy who programs the learning technologies part of the conference. And it's great to be back. Isn't it? Yes. Thank you. We've got a great opening session for you. Thank you for biding with us. I know we've started late, but there were good reasons for it, so thank you for staying with us on that. I'm going to get to introducing our panel quite quickly. Before I do that, I need to just quickly do some housekeeping, make sure that we all know what's going on. And firstly, before I do anything else, I want to recognize something. The past 2 years haven't been easy, professionally, personally. And we're not going to hide that. We're going to debate the effect of the pandemic on learning later on. And sadly, also, not everybody who wants to be here can be here, but you are here. And I want to say, the whole team wants to say, thank you. Thank you for doing the mask thing. Thank you for doing the tests. Thank you for doing the travel to get here. It really makes a difference. Now, we know we can do great stuff online. We knew that anyway. We've learned so much more about it during the pandemic, but also nothing quite beats meeting face-to-face. So thank you for being here, ready to share, ready to participate. And also, I want to say, for everyone who's watching on the live stream, hi, great to have you with us, and we look forward to sharing more stuff online in the future as well. Absolutely. Let's go through the housekeeping. Firstly, very importantly, the hashtag for the event on Twitter, #OEB21. That's important because while our panelists are speaking, I'm going to be watching Twitter and I'm going to be checking for great questions and ideas coming through so I can throw them at them. All right, so please, when you've got ideas and thoughts, stick them on Twitter, I'll pick them up. Of course, we're not just on Twitter. We've got all of these different social media handles that you can stick to. So if you're on Instagram or anything else, these are the tags you should be following. And we've got to thank our sponsors and partners, particularly this year, when, honestly, if you're a vendor, look, maybe it's a bit of a speculation. Should you, shouldn't you? They did. So I want to say a big thank you to all our sponsors and partners. I'm going to be cheesy. I'm going to give them a round of applause. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Oh gosh. Thank you also to our video capture partner, Streaming Valley. Now, I keep pointing over there because we've got a camera that I'm looking at. The recordings will be available later, and you'll be able to get that, and that's been made possible by Streaming Valley. Okay. We did start late. Normally at this stage, I'd jump in and I'd ask everybody to debate a question, but I think you're hankering to get the panel underway and get started. So I'd like to introduce you to our panel. We've got Fons Trompenaars, who's an author and organisational design specialist, and Marleen Stikker, from the founder of Waag. I hope I've got that right. Thank you. Okay. And Professor of Practice at the Hogeschool van Amsterdam. Okay, don't have to laugh. I'm doing my best. Let's welcome our panelists up on stage, please. Fons, Marleen. I love the way the Dutch are completely unreserved. If you make a mistake, they're going to laugh. It's no problem at all. The theme for the conference is learning resilience. Fons is going to be talking about how the world is increasingly diverse, but the pedagogical methods and systems we have and the way we deliver training and the way we support learning have not moved with the times, and they are frankly biased. And he's going to offer a solution to that. In conversation with Marleen, it's fascinating what she's talking about, particularly focused on technology, the need to be very conscious about data and design, and the question of sovereignty. Who's actually in control at the individual, corporate, even the state level of what's going on? It may not be that we have as much control as we perhaps would like or should have. It's going to be a great couple of sessions. Fons will speak for 20 minutes, then Marleen. I'm looking at Twitter for your questions, looking forward to getting them, and then of course we'll open the floor up. So please, welcome our first speaker, Fons Trompenaars. Fons.
Thank you so much, Donald, and thank you for the applause, because I normally don't get it at the end. What I would like to do is indeed challenge a bit our existing paradigms. Why is that so important? Because let me give you some statistics. 15 years ago, 14% of people living in Amsterdam didn't have Dutch parents. Now, I'm an example of it, having a French mother and a Dutch father, which doesn't make you Belgian, by the way. Even in my field, there are limits of what you can take. But it's quite interesting that, any idea what the percentage is today? So in 15 years' time, 56% of people living in Amsterdam don't have Dutch parents. By the way, 58% in The Hague, and we're very happy they're in The Hague. Now, why I'm saying this? Because the world is getting more diverse, not only in traveling more, but you don't have to travel anymore. Look at here, it's diverse. And you know, what do we do with a diverse environment? Now, what is the problem? The problem is that our models suck, and they have two problems. Our models are culturally biased. If you read leadership literature, you smell the nationality of the author. In America, a good leader 10 years ago had courage, today has caution. Yeah? 15 years ago, a good leader had vision. 5 years ago, a good leader has a practice in execution. And I have good news for you. Courage doesn't work, and caution doesn't work. Because courage without caution leads to recklessness, and caution without courage, you're a coward, and both don't work. If you read a French book on leadership, it's very simple. The summary of all French books on leadership: are you male, from Paris, and did you go to the École Polytechnique? Grand patron, yeah? Now, what does that mean if you have a multicultural team? So suddenly you're teaching or you're guiding in a multicultural team. What leadership literature will you read? And the problem is, the book has to be written. We need a new paradigm, and the same for educational processes. Now, there are ways out of it, and let me show you what Einstein said. Einstein said you can't solve a problem at the same level it was created. And I think it's pretty wise. So we had a financial crisis in Europe, and we asked the Germans to solve it, right? But that's not exactly what Einstein meant. You need to go one level higher, right? And what are ways of doing it? Have a look. Very popular topics. You need to be innovative. You need to be sustainable. It is all about global. And finally, what is your role as a teacher and as a leader? Now, let me connect those four in one sentence. And it's obviously a German sentence, but I promise you after 480 words I'll stop. Globalization leads to different viewpoints, of which the essential role of a leader to connect, which is another word for innovation that leads to sustainable results. So it's all about bringing together opposites, and it looks like our models don't help us. Now, another problem with our models is that they are bipolar. Bipolar meaning that if you score high on one side of the scale, you score low on the other side. The crap that Myers-Briggs, as my wonderful colleague Charles Hamden Turner says, because I wouldn't dare to say it myself, Myers and Briggs, weren't they two housewives that developed the questionnaire over the weekend? Now, I looked at that questionnaire, can't be a full weekend, yeah? You have a scale, and if you score high on thinking, you score low on feeling. Yeah, what the hell is that? Because Carl Jung said that the quality of thinking is how you connect them to your feelings. And we are measuring, okay, they say your preference. So your preference. Now, I'm in the world of clapping. And the beauty of clapping is your preference disappears, okay? And it's not ignoring that you have a preference, but in clapping it doesn't matter. It's about coordination. And that's what I want to talk about with some examples. Innovation is a very interesting one. It's combining values that are not easily joined, therefore scarce, therefore profitable. 2 examples. Apple. What has Apple combined that is not easy? They have made beauty functional. because I know a lot of beautiful stuff with no function. I have 2 Maseratis. One is always in repair. I was in Italy yesterday. That was the end of my conference. And then there was a wonderful example in Formula One. What is the big dilemma in Formula One? It's speed and safety. Every engineer in Formula One says, what can I do with the speed of the car to make it more safe? Rather than, take off the wheels, it's very safe, but it might be at the cost of speed, right? So I want to get you in that paradigm of combining opposites. And it doesn't come natural because our models are bipolar, including cultural models. Are you individualist or are you collectivist? Now, if you are a collectivist at the cost of the individual, you're a communist and it doesn't work. If you're an individualist at the cost of the collectivity, you're an egoist and it doesn't work. Great individuals give it back to the team, and the great teams nurture excelling individuals. That's my paradigm. Now, let us give you the way out. This is the old paradigm. Are we a rectangle or are we an ellipse? And just think about the shadow of a cylinder. And that's being human versus German, which obviously is a rectangle, or Italian, which obviously is an ellipse. And in fact, the spiral, the helix, is giving a symbol to the dance between opposites. Now, what does that mean for education? For education, we're loaded with dilemmas. If we just take Kolb, yeah? Now, successful teachers know, first of all, what is a dilemma. And a dilemma means 2 opposites that are fighting and both are positive. They could be both negative, but let's ignore that for the moment. And they distinguish a problem from a dilemma. And if it's a dilemma, they reconcile it. So let me give you a method to do this. First of all, for example, in the classroom, try to find what are the diverse issues here. It's not only passport, it's gender, it is generation, it's all kind of stuff. Recognize it. Now, most people in my field, multicultural management, and here, they say the French are different from the Dutch. Oh, really? Right? And then they walk out of the room and say, good luck. No, it leads to stereotypes. The French are always late, and the Dutch are too blunt. Yeah? Now, it's risky. It leads to stereotypes, because I once met a French person on time. Yeah? Yeah, it was in London. They forgot about the hour time difference. Right? Now, it's good that you laugh about it, but, the French are flexible with time because they never wait. They do something else, right? Because they never know when people come in. And is one good or bad? That's not the issue. So that's respect, the second R. Once you respect what you recognize as a diverse issue, it becomes a dilemma that you need to reconcile. And finally, what, as an educator, I can do to realize and root this. Now, let's take Kolb learning style. It's obviously a person from America, because at the top, you start with a concrete experience. Harvard, they call it a case study. And it irritates the hell out of the French, because the French are at the bottom. You need to start with the concept, and then you work it out. Will it work in practice, right? So what do you do if you have an American and a French person in the room? And that's the same with digitalization. Some love digital stuff and others say, no, it's all about the relationship. No, it's just a dilemma. And what is cultural about it is, where do you start? The Americans say, we start digitally. Oh, and our problem is the face-to-face relationship. I know cultures where they say, no, we start with face-to-face, and the problem is digital. But the dilemma is the same. Now, culture. Let me give you a little model of culture, and I don't want to bore you with that, but it has many layers. And I'm doing this because I want to get into the core. On the outside, it's known as explicit culture. It's the language we speak, it's the food we eat. By the way, this is Ed Shine, although he doesn't use an onion, but my mother is French, so I use an onion. And why? Because if you unpeel the onion, it makes you cry. Now, behavior is the outside expressions of culture, but it hides a deeper level beyond explicit culture, that are norms and values. So you all might eat sushi, but the value according to which you eat sushi might be quite different. A value is what you desire, a norm is what you think you should do. So you might wear a tie, and you say, why? Now, I hate ties, but I have to. Or I love ties, that's why I'm doing it. It's quite different. And what Einstein says, when the value becomes a norm, in the example of ties, you become an Italian, it slips out of consciousness and becomes a basic assumption. And a basic assumption is the deep idea close to what is implicit and close to a basic assumption like a belief. Now, culture, in fact, is the dynamic process of solving human problems that come to us as dilemmas. The dilemmas are human, I'll give you an example in a second, but the way we approach dilemmas are cultural. In areas of human relationships, time, and nature. And I want to give you some examples on this level, and then leave you with, oh, this was inspiring, but I don't know how to do it. But we run workshops next time. Now, I did research for 40 years about cultural differences, a bit avant la lettre. In 1979, I started my PhD work in cultural diversity, looking at what is the effect of national culture on corporate culture. And one of the cultural questions we asked, and I love it because it's such a clear one, and it is still relevant because it works in every culture, is the following question. You're riding in a car driven by a close friend of yours. Your friend is speeding, going 50 kilometers an hour, where you're allowed to go 30. And your friend hits a pedestrian. You come to court, and the lawyer of your friend says, don't worry, you're the only witness. Two questions. One, what is the right of your friend to expect you to lie for him or her? My friend A has a definite right, some right, no right. May I ask you to have a thought about it? Your friend is speeding, you know it, 50 kilometers an hour, where you're allowed to go 30. And the judge in front of you, under oath, by the way, even better, says, what was the speed your friend was going? What is the right of your friend to expect you to lie? Then second question is, would you lie, yes or no? Now, before engaging you in a little discussion, who would like to be in this situation? Can you raise your hand? I've never had a person who said, nice situation to be in. And believe me, I've done this in Nigeria, in Korea, in America. Nobody ever, once in America, a person raised a hand and we stopped all the workshops in the White House. And yeah, it was a couple of years ago, by the way, yeah. And later he told me, no, it's not a problem, but the problem is that I'm not used to 3 options, yeah. Anyway. Let us go to why not. Now, people tell me, and again, sorry, we don't have time to really get into you, but they say it's a dilemma. There's nobody in this room, correct me if I'm wrong, that doesn't want to help a friend. And at the same time, there's nobody in the room that doesn't have something with the truth. So the dilemma is human. And then you look at what cultures have done with this question. Culture creeps in, that kills half of your logic. And it's time that we go beyond our own logic and become the cylinder rather than a rectangle and an ellipse. That's my point, okay? Now, have a look. This is called, and we have 7 meta-dilemmas. This is one called universalism versus particularism. Universalism is something like, be consistent, there are system standards and rules, there are procedures, and these are the people who talk about transparency, which allows Dutch people to say, yee, you're ugly. Yeah, and you know why? It's your ears, yeah? What? Transparency, new fashion. Any value, I have some, I'll give you the 2 one-liners that you should keep in mind. Any value disconnected from its opposite leads to a pathology. And second one, the value of a value is, does it help you reconcile dilemmas? Okay? So you better understand this. So the Italian side is particularistic. Are you flexible? There are exceptions. It depends. Those are people who ask, what happened to the pedestrian? In Italy yesterday, they asked me what happened to the car. There are important things. Because my answer will depend on what happened, right? While a universalist would say, I don't care. Have a look at 150,000 people that filled in our question. Now, this is only 80,000 because we have a database of 140 countries. Switzerland, 97%. Scored, my friend has no right or some right and I will not help. Canada, so all the Protestants are at the top because God is always checking if you tell the truth, right? The Catholics Spain, France, and you end up in Venezuela, would say, perhaps God wasn't looking. And if he looked, he will understand. And if he doesn't, then we have confession, right? Now, it's good that you laugh, because the risk, if I would stop here, that all the universalists, and I know in education most of you are universalists, would say, thank Mr. Trompenaars. I knew the Venezuelans, Koreans, and Russians are corrupt. You can't trust them. They always help their friends. Till I did a workshop in Korea, and they said, Mr. Trompenaars, I knew Americans are corrupt. I said, what? Yeah, because they never help their friends. So by what do you want to be corrupted? And what I'm doing with you is there is no good or bad. There is a good, but it's connecting the two. Now, let's take discipline. Same database, same type of diversity, and you see that legal and HR people are more universalistic, and marketing people are more particularistic. By the way, sales is not on the chart because PowerPoint can't deal with negative scores, right? Okay. Now, let's apply this to Kolb. So we have abstract conceptualization, working smart but not hard. And we have concrete experience, working hard but not smart. And what you need to do as a teacher is to combine the two. And that is something that I will work out in practice in the coming 5 minutes. Why not culture, 20 minutes? Now, let's take creativity. If you want to be innovative, and that's my point, innovation is combining opposites. You need creative individuals. You need a team that is inventive, and finally, you need an innovative organization. And I want to give you 3 examples of how to do it. First of all, the creative individual. Now, I was lucky. I have some highlights in my professional career, and one was that John Cleese was with me on stage, and he said, Fons, I want to work with you because you showed me the essence of humor. Not because I'm obviously, I know I'm very funny, but he said, humor is when 2 opposite logics both turn logical and it makes you laugh. It's a deep thought, so it has to be from John Cleese. In fact, Kustler was the guy. But it's interesting, and the example he gave, 4 prisoners were playing cards in jail, and one was cheating, so they kicked him out of jail. Yeah? And we call that contextualizing. You reverse text and context. For the Germans, I'll explain in a second. Now, the creative individual. The creative individual. Now, I'm not a creativity guy, so I Googled what is the most used questionnaire survey in finding out if people are creative or not. And I never heard of the guy, but he's called Curtin, K-I-R-T-O-N. And he developed the KAI is Curtin Adapter Innovator Questionnaire. And he says creative people are more like this, and they are less like this. And you see the top 4, and there are 902 articles written about the relationship between the score on Myers-Briggs and the KAI questionnaire. That's why in universities they call this research, and we are in the world of search. Now, I'm saying this because how, as a top quoted person in creativity research, can you use a bipolar scale? And the point, and obviously we'll give you the adapter versus the innovator. If he would have called that the inventor, he was in great shape. Why? Because what I want to do in your mind is crack the line. If it is invention versus adaptation, innovation is an invention that is adapted to commercialization or what have you. So the keywords of the questionnaire of KAI are I'm ingenious, original, independent, unconventional, versus keywords in other questions, efficiency, thoroughness, adaptability, etc. And we just added, next to A and B, C and D, namely, I'm continuously checking in an organized and methodical manner whether my original ideas work in practice, and vice versa, right? Now, can you imagine that a guy, I'm teaching at the Free University in Amsterdam, but I'm just doing that as a side dish, that we kill with non-bipolar thinking the most quoted guy in creativity research. And what is more funny, that we wrote an article about this with empirical evidence that creative people do reconcile in innovative type of solutions, which I hope you will be. And there's no not one reaction, and they keep on using KAI. And that's not only here, that is true in anything. I was just telling wonderful Donald that I was taught by Jesuits, as you can see in my speeches. And they had audio teaching on language. And we could prove that children at age 15 were on the same level as people of 17, 18 doing their final exam, on the same level, 2 years earlier than the traditional teaching. Because the combination of grammar and audio is very, very powerful, right? We are still not doing it. It's amazing. Because one thing I told, because I don't want to say in the audience, but teachers are the least open for change. Yeah? So now I can go. The inventive team, 2 more examples and we'll be there. He's getting nervous. The inventive team. Who of you knows, for example, in a classroom or in your own team of teachers or whatever, what the potential is to be inventive? And there is research, and I'm more positive about Belbin. Belbin says you need 9 roles in a team to be creative. The completer finisher, the specialist, the plant, monitor, evaluate, and what have you. Now, one person can cover 3 roles, but there are dilemmas in the different stages of innovation that need to be reconciled. For example, the plant with the ideas and the monitor evaluator that kills the idea. And if you don't reconcile this, this happens, namely, strangled at birth. And you know this in your team. But if you only have plans without any evaluation, you end up in the blue sky, the Amsterdam coffee shop. Now, how can you realize ideas through critical oxygen? Constructive dialogue. And that is something developed by Professor De Bruyne. I think he's the only professor in Belgium. And it's interesting. He looked at if anybody will come up with an idea, you can criticize it under 2 conditions. You first have to say 2 good things about the idea, and then start the sentence of criticism with the number of words saying, how can I help you overcome? And then you criticize. And finally, we need an organization that supports wonderful ideas. And there are models, egalitarian, hierarchical, person-oriented, and task-oriented. In view of time, I want to come to a conclusion. The world is getting more diverse. We see it here. How can we cope with diversity in a more effective way as educators? And is first of all show what are the dilemmas. For example, do as a teacher I have authority like in China, or am I pissed off by the students like in the Netherlands? How do you combine it if there are Chinese and Dutch people in your classroom? And we call that serving teaching. In leadership, it's called servant leadership. It is that you use your authority to engage people, and that the engagement of people gives you more authority. And everybody who is a father or a mother here knows what it is to be a servant teacher, right? Sometimes you're severe, and sometimes you hug them. But it's the combination of both that works very well. And the final dilemma that I think is very important, building a little bridge to the wonderful speech of Marleen, is what we call the locus of control. Do we control our environment, or is the environment controlling us? And it's an interesting one, because I believe the reconciliation is what we call pushing through the pool. Philips had a lot of technology push. We will make the world better, and then they were either too early or too late with their products, right? And I know Sony said, thanks for your invention, Philips, we'll go to the client. Apple has combined the two. Namely, what can I do with the push that pulls our environment and vice versa? I hope this was inspiring, but gee, I'm an educator myself. I hope I'm convincing enough that you say, think in dilemmas and ask the question, what can I do with value X that gives me more of value Y? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just a quick check. Is there anybody in the audience that Fons hasn't insulted? just want to be sure. I don't. No hands are going up, so I think we're good. We're going to do follow-up questions at the end. I want to give Marleen a chance to speak. But first, Fons, you're talking about the need to reconcile dilemmas. That's a method. What stands in the way of people adopting it? We know it works. Why don't we do it?
First of all, authority in charge.
Yeah.
If you have leaders that believe, hey, it's not at the cost of myself,
right.
It's enriching myself with the opposite, which is our model of managing change. Managing change is not replacing yourself, but enriching yourself with the opposite. Then you have leadership that really works. Now, all our axes are the same size. In real life, it's not. Yeah. If the powerful axis says, yes, I'm enriching myself rather than replacing myself, losing authority, then it's really hindering that process.
So to make it work, we need some strong leadership that enables people to see that there's value in it for them and it's not a threat. Exactly. Thank you so much. I could listen to Fons all day. I'm sure you could as well. Time to move on to our next speaker, Marleen Stikker, going to talk to us about, well, the title is great. It may be a phrase you've heard before. If you can't open it, you don't own it. Marleen, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yes. I'm still thinking about the first speaker, so about my own cultural biases. And I think I will say some of that as well. Oh, maybe I have now two of them. Yes. So first of all, I'm from Waag. I'm founder, director of Waag. And I'm professor of practice at applied universities, which helps maybe instead of the hogeschool, the G. So Waag or Waag for people that have a problem in expressing the G. It's a future lab, and we look into the emerging technologies and how they influence our lives and how we would like to influence technology. This is the bridge. Is technology defining us, or can we define technology? And where is our agency there? And we have an ethos of a hacker, maker culture, an artistic collaboration, and civic activism. So I'm definitely coming from, not from the business side, but from societal perspective. And this is our main positioning. Technology is not neutral. It's, we're inside of what we make, and it's inside of us. We are living in a world of connections, and it matters which ones get made and unmade. By Donna Haraway, the Cyborg Manifesto from the 80s of the last century. Technology is not something that comes from the sky, comes from God, comes from the ground. It's man-made, human-made. These are cultural artifacts. So technology is something with the onion. It's the deeper layers is our assumptions, our values are inside of the technologies that we make. And we're not always aware of them. So we have a lot of technologies around us, but we don't always discuss the values that are inside of it. And I want to make a plea to do that and to learn about that so that we have a common understanding. And we can make the technologies better than we have at the moment. I wrote a book, The Internet is Broken and We Can Fix It. I started in the early 90s with the Digital City, opening up the internet to the general public, like sort of like a social media platform avant la lettre in 1994. And I have seen the change over the 30 years of the internet that is as a public environment. So we had this sort of green field with a lot of possibilities. There were some dark clouds there as well, of course, already in the 90s. Especially the hacker movement knew about the dangers and that technology is also power, and in the wrong hands it would also would be very problematic. But it also has this ability to engage, to enable people, to give them access to information, to communication, to organize themselves. And both things are still there, but I think most of us now experience the internet also as not a green field anymore, but as a brown field. There are power structures in place, and either on each level of thinking, if it's about our individual position or the states or the European Union versus, we discuss it as a battlefield, as something that is not neutral anymore. So our strategic autonomy or sovereignty is at stake, both on the individual level, but also on the state level. So cybersecurity councils are helped telling us, the governments, that they have to be aware of it. And the European Union, for example, is setting up new laws to help the companies in Europe to survive. So this is a little bit like what you can see on the street. I think also a lot of the people that are against the vaccination programs and sort of this whole, I think about fake news, it's also very much fueled by technology at the moment, by the social media dark patterns that are in the social media platforms. But it's also some more specific feelings that we don't trust the technology always that surrounds us, and that is also defining us. If this is the systems of the universities, of the educational institutions, the government, the social media platforms, the products that we use on our phones. So this is very well coined by Susanna Zuboff in a very, I'm not sure if any of you ever read the whole book, but I think everybody knows knows the phrase, the age of surveillance capitalism. And it tells us the story that surveillance became a business model. So it's a way to make the money. So this is underneath the values at the moment of most of the services and technologies that we use in our daily life. And we even think that it's normal, that we can change behavior. I think this is for only $49, you can get your partner to propose marriage or try polyamory, get a breast augmentation. I don't know what happens here. So to see the message in their minds. So this is what we know from Cambridge Analytica. This is what we know what Facebook is doing still, although they say they're not doing it, is seeding images, seeding ideas in our minds. So we we are narrative people. So we need storylines, and when we engage with this kind of stories, and a lot of people are trapped at the moment in these stories, and based on the business model, not because those stories are stronger, but just they make more money. So for $49, you can do it yourself, which is quite an interesting idea, that we can change our behavior by pointing them out to certain topics and messages online. This is other storylines, assumptions that artificial intelligence is so very, very, very intelligent that it can tell us if we are gay or not. Which is quite interesting, because a lot of people will feel that their sexuality is quite complicated to define, but AI can do it for you. Just on the measuring of your facial, how your ears and your eyes are defined. Or it can tell you also about your emotions. We know it's quite difficult to understand emotions. I think we don't even know the microorganisms in our gut is maybe more influences more our emotions than our brain. So in another field of science, we actually trying to understand what the gut has to say to the brain. But no, artificial intelligence knows your emotions. So there are a lot of assumptions, and a lot of people believe these kind of storylines. And I think they're very dangerous, because they're snake oil, they're not true. So the whole idea that data will define us, and that data will tell us the truth, or that data is objective, or that algorithms are objective, and our abstraction, which is on a higher level than our normal experience, our social intelligence, our human intelligence, is a dangerous storyline, a dangerous narrative. And a lot of people are lured into that, and it's being told to us, and we have to teach it as well. So a lot of people in governments feel that they have to do data-driven policymaking. Or in law, they think we need AI to have a better judgment. Or in education, we need learning analytics, because then we really understand the students, instead of having a real conversation with the student. Or we think we need AI to understand if we have a good employee, instead of having real conversations with the person. So it's a lot of, I think this is one of those cultural aspects, assumptions, that abstraction is higher than real information. Or human information. I think this I think is a very interesting way to discuss this, because maybe that's not everywhere, but in the digital, and not in all cultures. But if we talk about technology, this is the sort of hidden narrative of technology. And I think it is a problematic thing. So we have to demystify the technology in order to make it more accessible for people. There's a lot of people who say, well, it's so complicated, you cannot understand it. Let us make the technology for you, and then you can be the user of it. But then you don't have influence on the technology, you just are in the system of what the technology tells you to be. So there's a lot of artificial unintelligence, there's a lot of algorithms of oppression, weapons of mass destruction. I think these are great books, actually very accessible. I think this should be like the teaching we should do at schools, but also as professionals, to have the knowledge about this, to demystify the technology. I think this is a very interesting a documentary online. So more and more this comes also this is on Netflix. So more and more this kind of cultural documentaries, positioning is available and can be also used in teaching. There's a lot of uproar at the moment more in the general public, in society. So the reclaim your face, we don't want to be defined by biometric surveillance. The right to repair, another one. Why are all our systems closed? Why can't we repair it? This kind of movements has some influence. From the Waag, we made Fairphone. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. It's an open phone which you can repair yourself, which is also dealing with the conflict minerals that are in the phone, the conditions and the working conditions in which phones are being made, the circularity of the phone. So this repair movement now came also to Apple. I think Apple just announced that they will make it possible for us to repair our own machines. And I like this repair manifesto a lot. It's also a positioning. If we can't understand the technology that we use, how can we then be resilient? I think this is the general question for today. If we have to live the life that is being set out for us, how can we be responsible? So we need to have another definition, another relationship to these technologies. So if you can't open it, you don't own it, is the motto of the maker movement. It's a very specific positioning in wanting to open the black box. People versus big tech is one of the larger movements now. 70 million Europeans are having some issues that they put on the table, they lobby for it, which is quite a new development. I haven't seen it before. So there is some change at the moment going on. So this black box, so what's inside of this black box? I think this is also an interesting question. It's not just something like we have to, or it's not just activism. It's also really curiosity. And we can build this kind of curiosity. What's inside of the black box? What is below the surface? This is how we envisioned the world before everything became digital. So this was the mechanic world. So we knew how to repair our own car. This still feels, I don't know how to do it, but it feels as I could do it. Because it's open, it's transparent. It tells me that all these components are necessary. The cars that we have now are locked in. A lot of the software we don't know how to read it. It's not open, it's not transparent. So we live in a digital world where most of the code is closed. And there is a movement for open source, but it's not there everywhere. So most of the technology is invisible. So you can see it as like this the iceberg, where we have the applications, and we're happy because we have beautiful applications. We love them, of course, and I love them as well. But underneath there is a technological stack that we don't always understand. There is a design process which we are not part of mostly. And there is a foundation, which is all these kind of assumptions and the social economic models that are underneath our technological world. So this stack, there are all kind of different ways to understand the stack of all the different layers of technology that is making our internet, making our applications. And each of them have their specific questions. For example, who controls the App Store? Why are we only have 2 App Stores? Why don't we have one which is a public version that tells you these apps are good for your privacy? Why do we have to? So this is the question about monopolies. Questions about why can't we not control or adapt our operating systems on our devices? Why can't we change firmware and drivers? Not for everybody here, but some of the developers would love to have more access to the hardware. Why don't we know the origin of our phones? Like most of our phones, we know that there is conflict minerals in it. There's bad conditions for workers. It's not transparent. It's the same question for our clothes, for our food. These kind of questions are important if we want to be resilient and we don't want to take responsibility for our lives. And so on and so on. So there, for example, internet infrastructure. We know since Edward Snowden that all our communication, all our data traffic over the oceans is being controlled and being intercepted by the Americans. Do we care? Maybe. I think some of us care. And now the European Commission is putting its own cable from Portugal to Brazil. At the moment, we're like on a ship. So building up your own infrastructure tells something about your own strategic autonomy, your sovereignty as a state or as a continent. And this kind of questions are there on the state level, on cities level. Cities are coping with the same questions. Can we control our own systems? Or is Uber defining our mobility policy? Or is Airbnb defining our tourist policies? And so the same counts for universities and education institutions. As a professor of practice at the Applied University, I'm now discussing and helping also the inner organization. What kind of technology do you have? And do you have a say about it? Do you know how the algorithms work? Are they open? Are they transparent? What is about data, people in control? Are students in control of the data? So that kind of really deeper questions should be at the table on the policy level, and so on and on. So many of these questions should be raised, and more people should be able to discuss it and to ask the questions, and also to come up with some alternatives. So we would love to have these public principles, rule of law in all layers of the stack. So what are these then? How can we come from where we are? Technologies that are closed, big tech is in control, extraction of value, surveillance capitalism, and human values and democracy at stake. And where we do want to go, hopefully, and I want to state, because this is a moral position, I know, it's expressing my values. I would say we want to go for open and public, society in control, regenerative, data minimalization if needed, and fair and sustainable. I think this should be like the common position, that we want our technologies to fit these kind of values. So then it's about the foundation. So if we think about where do we start, we need to start with the question, what are your assumptions? So here comes also the whole question about culture. Humans are biased by default. So there is no technology is an expression of culture. So you have to be clarify where you're optimizing for. So if the police wants to have artificial intelligence for crowd control, with demonstrations, for example, the demonstrators would like to have AI to be more effective with the demonstration. So who can then make the AI? So we can't just say AI is good for society. We have to understand where are we optimizing for. Is the AI from learning analytics, where are you optimizing for a better system of control, or is it actually really helping the student? Can the student define what the AI is doing, what the learning analytics helps her or him to do? So these kind of questions are not always raised. So it's defined like we're doing good. Mostly when we put data in place or algorithms in place, we think we're doing good. It's efficient, it's sustainable, but there are questions about power and power relations. And any artificial intelligence or data that is being created will create a greater divide between the have and have-nots. So the people that don't have the data cannot tell you what they don't know. So these are all about also power structures. So these starting points and assumptions are really important to clarify and to share. The second one, what kind of rights are in place? Like, is it privacy by design? Is it sovereignty by design? Do we put the integrity of the personhood? Like we have the integrity of our body. We're not selling our body parts. This is normal for us here, that we're not doing that. It's also in the law. But why are we think it's normal that we sell or make transactions of personal data? Should we not say that the integrity of the personhood is as important as the integrity of our body? But this is a totally different positioning than starting to say that we want to have product safety. So you have to think about what kind of rule of law is actually at stake, what kind of principles are at stake. And to define that can make that you can then build up your storyline. Another really important question is the social economic considerations. Who owns the stuff? Who controls it? Who defines? Who pays for it? What is the capital flow in it? Is there extraction? Why don't we go for more commons-based solutions? This is the question about all public infrastructures. Why is internet not a public infrastructure? Why are we discussing all our personal issues and our social issues and our political discussions all on privatized platforms with people that are controlling what can be said and not can be said, and we have nothing to say about it. Very strange that we accept this. So there's a lot to say about why are we accepting certain forms of control by financial and capital institutions. Why is Uber still there when we know that they have a billion euros or dollars in short every year? Because there is Saudi Arabic oil money floating into Uber. So we have to understand this kind of movements to understand what is the power that big tech has over us at the moment, and why we're not in control over our systems, over our societies at the moment. So these are not there. Questions about control, about how capital flows for our societies, but also it can also bring up the alternatives for it. And the fourth, of course, is then from the foundational questions is how do we govern? And what is the supervision? So who is society in control? Is the democracy still in control? Or are we sort of behind, lacking behind and trying to catch up? I think at the moment we're trying to catch up in a lot of places, both in the United States as in Europe. There's a lot of lawmaking going on. There's a lot of competition law in place. So it's quite an interesting time for that. So there's more and more happening in that field. So yes, if you have put all this on the table, and then it means that more people should be able to participate in the design process. And I think it would be really good if we don't only use the technologies and help people to use the technologies, but we also learn people to make the technologies. So it's not about media literacy, it's about technology literacy, to become more savvy and to have another understanding of technology, especially when you're a professional using the technologies. You have to understand what kind of assumptions are in there and to be able to discuss this kind of questions that I raise and then be explicit why you use this technology or this software or this application. This could be like the cultural debate that we need. And in the end, what I would really want to see is that our technology stack is public at the core. So it has this public principles, rule of law, and at all layers of the stack, in all our infrastructures. This means that this is really an interdisciplinary perspective, which also needs to have I think this is again, you need to come up with bridging the dilemmas, bridging the different perspectives. So it's not just government or companies, it's also society that should step in and redefine what we want from the digital and the internet. So in the end, that would mean that we have a safe and just digital future, which is really what we all strive for. And this is, I think, this is the overall idea. If you can come up with more a public space, that the internet is back as a public space, where the internet is for the common good, we're in a better place. So what do we need to get there? I think it's this. We all have to become more savvy, which is not just savvy as a user, but savvy as a co-designer, a co-creator, which means that you need to have the perception, the comprehension, but you also need to have some practical experience. So I would say we all need to find the hacker in ourselves. Thank you very much.
Lots to think about there. Marleen, a long time ago was a computer programmer. A long time ago. Literally, the computers I programmed are now in the Museum of Computing in the UK. It was that long ago. I don't feel completely comfortable being able to do what you said there, be savvy, but I'm probably better positioned to do it. Where can most people start getting that sense of taking more control, getting back the sovereignty, as you put it, over the technical world we live in?
I'm not sure if people that have a technical background or informatics as background are more savvy.
Okay.
Which is quite a... because I think if you see now, the people that are most critical about artificial intelligence, they know something about categories. They know something about what bias is, what perception is. So we need other fields of other disciplines, knowledge disciplines, to understand, to make it make sense. So it's not... So I think people in the technical sphere have to be educated and to understand that technology is not neutral. and people in more like the humanities and social sciences have to be educated so that they have hands-on experience and they not feel like I can't touch it, I don't know what's inside of the black box.
That's a really good answer, thank you. And I have read all of Surveillance Capitalism, by the way, and
From cover to cover?
cover to cover, yeah.
Wow.
And Susanna Shovanov is not a tech person, but she manages to convey the issues very well. I'm going to steal something from Fons here. He said, Donald, what we need to do before the questions, because we'll be talking for about an hour more or less, is get everybody to talk to each other very quickly and decide what the best question you can decide on as a pair. All right, so if you can find somebody close to you, discuss what question you'd like to ask, and then if you decide it's not a good question, you can always blame it on your neighbor and say it was his or her idea. That was also Fons' joke. So what I'd like to do is if you could go ahead and take 2 minutes to find a great question, then we're going to have a show of hands. We'll have running around with microphones. Go ahead.
Well done.
Very good. Thank you, both.
Very welcome.
Good. I love the salespeople aren't on here because PowerPoint can't handle negative numbers.
In Italy, it was Italy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I said in Italy, the southern Italians are not.
And in southern Italy, what do you say? It's the northern, or what do you? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always something you can say. Yeah, it is risky. Educational experience should be theirs to control.
Yeah, okay.
Are they increasingly concerned about it?
Experience I'm teaching now and also doing work at the HVA, and I see that this question pops up more and more.
Great.
The discussions about proctoring, for example, are really at the core of the
Proctoring
discussion.
one's a really big one.
Yeah, but also like what is this learning analytics? Why does it tell? What does the system tell us about me? Why don't I have access to the system? So I think this is in general. It's yeah.
Okay, good. I might come to you with that question because I think it really goes to the heart of some of the stuff we've got at the conference. All right.
Ask something about which I didn't touch, high tech, high touch,
Okay.
the digital world.
What sort of question would you like on that?
Yeah, just with Corona, we do a lot of more digital, and we're very critical on digital. In that ballpark. Whatever.
I'll try to find a way. I'll try to find that. If it fits in, it's going to be difficult pulling everybody to a stop.
Yeah.
Have we got the microphones? Good.
Well done. Well done.
This is getting close to a record now. 8. Okay, the record for that is 11 pings. We reached 9. That shows us a good conversation. That was in Israel. I was doing a talk in Israel, and after 11 pings, I thought, fantastic, there's going to be so many great questions. Put your hands up. Nobody put their hand up. Obviously, it's all different here. I've got a hand going straight up. That's fabulous. Do we have microphones running around? Okay, are you seriously putting your hand up? Okay. We've got 2 people deciding if they're going to put a hand up or not. Let's get a microphone over here. We've got one hand in the air. Come on. This is the problem with democracy. Okay, let's have can we have another microphone down here at the front? Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. It's working. So I have a question for Marleen. At the end, you have this conclusion about techno-literacy and engaging people in co-creating, co-designing the technologies that govern them. And my question to you is, since a big portion of the users of the internet and the users of all these digital technologies are casual users who don't necessarily have the time or the will to become experts about the topic. So I really wanted to ask you, how do you think that we can encourage techno-literacy in these people who, they are, as everybody else, affected by this technology, but they don't necessarily have the tools or even the wish to become experts, how do those become also co-designers?
This is a great question, because it's not my question about the ability, it's really about the wish. Maybe they don't care. How do we make them care? Thank you. Great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that there are two sides of it. One is that with food safety, we don't say that everybody should be savvy about food. We just have organized together that food is safe. So this is something I really think should be in the digital as well. It's really strange when you go to the supermarket, you're pretty sure that the food is there is sort of safe. Also when you go to a restaurant. But if you go to the app store, you're pretty sure it's not safe. So this is strange. So we should sort of, and this should be for everybody, it should be clear that if you download an app, it's not going to surveil you or sell your information or start to do behavioral advertisement on you. That should be normal. So I think not everybody should be savvy, and not everybody has to step up their game. But especially the people that we teach in certain roles, in leadership positions, in the ones that are asking for the technology, that are applying the technology, those people should be much more educated. And I think this is I think if we say this is also your responsibility, it will help them in not saying you don't have to take care of it. What I think what could be a very good solution, are we now designing a transdisciplinary minor at the Applied University, which brings law, economics, business, design and tech together. So, and it's quite interesting because you can sort of come to this same question from these different perspectives. You need enough knowledge about all of these areas to be knowledgeable, but you don't have to be an expert on all of them. Mm-hmm. But I think this is what we try to figure out. What is the common language that you need, the common context, to be able to have a good discussion? Which means that we also have to step up our game at the social sciences, the humanities, but also on the technical side. Because I think a lot of people in informatics, and I'm also dealing a lot with that, are really sometimes very ignorant about the impact of the technologies, and that is bias. And so I think this could be, so not everybody, but definitely you.
Thank you for that. I think that's a great answer. People should be well enough informed to be concerned, and perhaps people who set standards, particularly politicians, need to be concerned enough about the votes that they will take action.
And maybe a little one, I think, I know there's some of the maker education also in here. I think this could be really something that sort of starts really early. Yeah. That making technology is part of arts, part of society. It's not something aside for the people that are very smart. Technology is just one of the materials that we make our world. Yeah. So it should be part of more the artistic design processes, taught at a very early age.
Thank you. That's a great answer. We had a question down here. Okay, go.
Hi, it's Antoine from Horeca Academy, also Netherlands. So we could have stayed at home for asking this question.
But it's much better to come together and meet people, isn't it? Thank you.
That's true.
Yes.
And then we get to see the beautiful Berlin. But I'm curious, I have a question for Fons. You, at least that was my perception, you basically murdered the learning styles and the Kolb theory in your presentation. So I'm curious if you could go a little elaborate on that, and if you have a solution for it on a different level because I think the learning styles questionnaire is very widely used by everybody, and I always feel very nervous about that. But I think, yeah, that's the question.
So just to be clear, is it specifically Kolb you're concerned about, or learning styles as a whole?
Yeah, Kolb to begin with, but then broader.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Fons.
Yeah. First of all, I'm not so critical on Kolb because he drew a circle, right? But the circle need to learn, and it becomes a helix, right? And I'm saying that because a lot of our like the curtain adapter innovator questionnaire is not a circle. It's either one or you're the other. The beauty of Kolb is that all the ingredients are there, and my question is, where do you need to start the circle once you are in a multicultural environment? Because the entry point to the circle is very culturally biased. And so my point, and by the way, I think there are versions of Kolb where they combine the opposites. Concrete experience and abstract conceptualization is one. Where the result need to be one where you combine. And I think with all these models like Kolb, but other learning style models, is the ingredients are there, but let's crack what I call crack the line, so that you as a teacher, you as an educator, can say, hey, how can we combine these two? I'm, by definition, talking to multicultural environments. Now, what do you do if your natural attitude is humor? Why? Because I believe humor makes a lot of things discussable, especially if you piss off all. Now, yeah, and including the Dutch, that's easy. Now, I'm saying this because it is a dilemma. Do I give up my own identity because I'm an abstract conceptualizer, or I'm more a concrete experience person? I would say to the concrete experience people, connect it to wonderful models, but start with your strength. And for the opposite, I would say use the model to go into concrete experience. But what I see in a lot of teaching is either, like the French would almost stick to abstract conceptualization without going to any case, and in California or at Harvard, you jump from one case to the other, and you wonder what the model is behind it. And it's kind of interesting because there is this famous story of this MBA from Harvard starting with a minor salary of 150,000 a year. And after 3 months, his boss said, "And have you completed your task?" And he said, "No, because we never got this case." And there are limitations to both, but the strength of a teacher, and I'm not blaming Kolb. I think Kolb give enough ingredients to invite people to combine. And that's what I want to leave in this room. Yeah. Don't give up all the, even Myers-Briggs, right? but ask the question, it's not A or B, but it has C and D as well. And that's what you need to do as an educator, is combine.
It may be the most important challenge, yes. Yep.
That was it, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, and by the way, Phil, I think on the learning styles question, we could be here all day debating it. I would definitely recommend, I think it's Pashlar 2009, a short article on debunking learning styles fairly comprehensively. Not Kolb himself, but particularly Waag. Yeah.
I think what's quite interesting is that there is this, like, the whole area which is called design thinking, which also bridges these two perceptions. And I think I was also talking about the abstraction and the concreteness, and that we need both. You can't, but it's quite good to see it as different learning styles. I see it on a daily basis in the Waag, that people would never go for technology before because they want to make something. Then they learn how to program, then they learn how to solder hardware, only because they know what they want to make. So some people need purpose, and some people like concepts, and some people like just to do stuff. So I think but also this purpose could be something which can help to bring the conceptual people and the practical people together. Like, what are we optimizing for? We are in a world that we need so much at the moment. I mean, we can't stand still. If you look at what is at stake. So I think this purpose could help to bridge also this world, also in an educational context.
We have an audience that's desperate to ask questions, and I'm going to go here first, and then we're going to go here. And I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to cover all of them, but we're going to get through as many as we can. So can we be super concise? Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My name is Lena Anderson. I'm from Copenhagen School of Design and Technology, and my question is for one who wants to answer. Should we prevent Google from entering the educational market? And in case yes, how can we possibly do so? Because so far the tech giants has made the majority of their money by personal advertisement, but that is kind of approaching its limits. And if you want to make more money and constantly expand, there are like two main areas. There's healthcare and there's education. So it's fairly predictable that the tech giants will be entering the educational market very soon. Oh. In Denmark, they're giving out free Chromebooks in schools, and no doubt they're collecting data aiming at entering the educational market. But the question is, should we prevent them from doing so? And how can we possibly do it?
Okay, great question. Google and perhaps other tech giants, and they're already in the education market, but they are entering new markets. Should we, and how? if so?
Well, they're not entering; they're already there. Especially in the Netherlands, most of the schools are using vendor locked-in systems for schools. Yes, I think by law it should be forbidden to collect data from students, and if we can apply that to the tech giants, then there might be a way to deal with them. But I think at the moment we should spend public money on public tech, which should be open, transparent, and based on privacy by design. And for example, we in the Netherlands we pay 25 million euros for Magister, which is a system all schools use. But 25 million, something that is not even innovative anymore. Why don't we spend it for 5 million for open source, 2 million a year for support, nice creative companies that can make new applications for students and for teachers and for parents? Then you have an ecosystem which makes sense. So we have to spend our public money wisely. And we have to start to fund it and put our money where our mouth is. So I think there's opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity to do this. But we also need laws.
In short, no, stop it, and public money needs to be accountable.
Yeah.
Fons.
Yeah, I think you can win a lot of money as well if you go technical. Let me give you a personal example. I was invited to do a thing in Singapore, but since the Dutch didn't follow the rules about Corona, I was invited to do it through Zoom. And I'll tell you, it saved me a lot of money, and it saved the client a lot of money, because Zoom is kind of free. And I didn't have to travel for 3 days to Singapore for a bloody talk of 30 minutes, which was 10 more minutes than here. So
you're making up for it now, though.
Yeah. So my answer is also look at the side how technology can make things much cheaper. And again, this comes back to the high-tech, high-touch dilemma, because students, if they stay at home not all the time, it saves a lot of money in other areas as well. Obviously, within the context of legal and things discussed by Marleen. But let's not only look at as a money expensive process.
Yeah.
I just really want to state, because some people think that I'm very critical, and then they feel that I'm against technology, and I'm not.
Oh.
I really love it. It's really nice. You can do really great stuff with it. So you can be very critical in the sense that you clarify your position in what your values are, what is inside of the onion. And I would love to see that we are more clarifying what are the values in the technology that we use. But then again, there are so many reasons to use it, because it's playful, it's creative, it's communication. We can use it for so many things.
Okay, we've got a mic. Thank you. We're going to go with this one here. Can you go further to the back, and we're going to try and get people involved right from the back of the auditorium if we can. Go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Jürgen Handke from Germany, and I designed a question together with Jane Hansen from Denmark. And we discovered cultural differences and identities. The question is quite simple. To Fons, you said you made a very interesting remark, to which we both fully subscribe. Teachers are least likely to foster innovation in education. That's similar to they're least likely to be open for change. And our question is simply, how can we make this change happen? What can we do with the teachers in order to convince them to enter into such changes? And I found out that perhaps you should have rephrased that sentence to German teachers are least likely to be open for change, because the situation, as Jane told me, is slightly different in Denmark.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jürgen.
Yeah, there is a consciousness level in general. Teachers are perhaps a particular case. And I'm saying that the conscious level of what is managing change and what does it give you. In organizations, what we very often do, and I'm supporting what Marleen says, is work on the purpose and values. Why are you a teacher? And what do you want to achieve with your students? And I think that helps tremendously to make steps within that context. So that's one remark. The other remark is the consciousness of what you're good at, don't throw it away. And again, it comes to the consciousness of what is the essence of managing change. You know, if you are an introvert person and you say you need to be extrovert, that doesn't help. But how can you use your introversion to have moments to express yourself to the outside? If you as a teacher want authority, then use that authority to involve people. In other words, the consciousness of enriching yourself with the opposite within the context of purpose and values might help tremendously. And then use your colleagues. In business, we call that a program, values to behavior. What is the actual behavior I need to show you in order to say, I live this value? And then you're supported by your colleagues rather than taking it as an individual issue. I think the main problem with teachers in their handicap or their resistance to change is that they are very often alone. And so build a network of people who support, oh, I tried this and it works. I hope that's helpful. It's very long because I don't have a clue.
Doing so well to that last bit. Marleen.
There's of course, there's also, I think we also have to look a little bit deeper in what kind of system our teachers have to operate. What is expected from them? And this is staying in the boxes, get people through the exams. And I think this is definitely, we can't just discuss this without also discussing how the system is also defining what teachers can do and cannot do. So I believe we should also then rethink what are we testing, what are we educating? And that discussion is really difficult because then you're really touching upon cultural assumptions. But it's clear that if we can change the educational system in which we then also teachers will stay in this problematic situation that they have to teach what other people already told them. So then they're not asked to be innovative at the moment. If they are, they can be, but then it's on their own terms, it's their own risk. Mostly.
Okay, thank you for that. And I know you raised the same point very eloquently yesterday evening in Inge de Waard's session. That was great. Do we have a question at the back? Oh, you've got a microphone here. Go ahead.
Hi. I have a question regarding normalizing surveillance that we're doing right now in education, backing up on the earlier question. I feel like Cassandra and Troy and shouting that surveillance is all around us. We have the proctoring software. We have students that have to turn on their camera right now, and we're datafying everything. And I am not sure if that's also the way that at least I want to go in education, and my students don't want to go in their education. Might be one of the reasons why they're not turning on their camera, I think. So how should we get to a form that we're actually education in control and not an education off control by, for example, big tech companies, but also software companies overall?
Great question. How do we put ourselves in control? Does it start with the teachers, the institutions, the students?
Yeah. Well, the question is, of course, a very complicated one because the whole proctoring, the whole surveillance comes from the idea that our educational systems are really large. So we have huge groups of students that we have to deal with, and then, well, we have technology to do that for us. So it comes as something which is efficient when you have to deal with large groups. If you're a smaller learning community, if you can build learning communities between teachers and students, you will have a totally different relationship. It will be not a lot of the education became transactional. Yep. You pay and then you learn, and then you have your degree. We need to reinvent what learning is, which is coming up together and learning together. Then this whole idea about testing and most of the systems that we have in place are based on no trust. So we don't have trustworthy relationships at the moment in education institutions. So this is the first thing you have to build. If you want to build learning environments based on trust, you will make different decisions about the scale of your operation and how you put teachers in the position that we trust them to make the right decisions instead of also controlling them in how they define if a student makes progression and is doing the right thing. So this is a really deep question. It's not the technology only. It's really about trust in our societies.
Fons, do you want to add anything to that? Thank you, Marleen.
Okay, because I'm not hindered by any knowledge, I would like to use a metaphor. And that it was the CEO of Ford, and it was about self-driving cars. And he said the self-driving car will only be a success if the driver is in control of what controls the driver. And take that as a metaphor of, are we in control of what is controlling us? Because to be honest, I don't have anything with the lack of privacy because I have nothing to hide. And I don't care if there is a video on because it's a mess in every house. Now, but that's personal. And I'm not putting my values on you. But be in control of what is controlling you is something we need to work on.
I'm just wondering if we have time for one really short question and some ultra snappy answers from our fabulous panelists. Do we have somebody right at the back? 'Cause I don't want the people at the back to feel excluded.
There's a hand.
Yeah, we're sprinting. You can't see it. Sprinting with a microphone. It's a slow sprint or a long distance. Yeah.
Hello, hello. I'll be quick. This question is for Marleen. I will play ignorant for a moment, just playing. And my thought is, who cares that my privacy is being invaded and that apps are following me and recording my data? What's wrong with that? You compared it to losing a limb, but it's not clear to me that why that analogy was made.
Right. Thank you. Picking up from Fons's point, hey, does it matter? I've got nothing to hide. Bring on the data collection.
Yes. No, thank you for asking that question and being very ignorant. I know you're not. To me, it's not about privacy. I think to me, it's about sovereignty. Am I still responsible for my own destiny? And if the technology that defines me, it is defining what I see, what I hear, what I can buy, if I can have an insurance, what kind of offers for employment are there, can I have a certain education? If all these algorithms and this profiling defines what my path in the future will be, because we use all data to define the future, then we have a real problem. So it's not so much about privacy, it's about this kind of idea about sovereignty. Second, I think, why are we vaccinated when we're young? We do that for other people. So there are a lot of people that have really, in a much more problematic position by losing their privacy. Because when you want to go from state to state, for example, or you showed this trust with the driver, can I help my friend? Yeah. And all the countries were on the lower part were Russia, China, Korea. I think we don't trust our governments there. Mm-hmm. So if you have a high trust in government, okay. But if you're low trust in government, then privacy is really important. Yeah. And in the Netherlands, a lot of people don't trust their governments because we had this huge scandal that people with a certain, based on the data algorithm, thousands of people have been excluded and they lost their children because of that, because the tax office was harsh to them. And so they lost money and then they lost their children. So we don't trust always our governments to deal with the data that they have from us. So I really think it's something at stake, and even if people don't really care, we should care for other people.
Yes, we should care for other people. Thank you. Look, I know, and I'm sorry we can't deal with all the questions. I know we've got a smart crowd, and thank you so much for bringing those questions up. It is 11 o'clock. I want to honour the fact that we need to move on to the next part of the schedule. But just to wrap up this session very quickly, let's think about resolving dilemmas by using perhaps and rather than or, and finding the ways in which two ends of a pole could perhaps work together. And who's in control? Sovereignty is crucial when it comes to dealing with the technology platforms we live with and rely on. I want to say a big thank you, everybody, to Fons Trompenaars and Marleen Stikker. Thank you. Breaking now for coffee. Have a great rest of the conference. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.